In this video, we'll start learning how to use the CFDStudio pre and post processor. The purpose of the CFDStudio pre and post processor is to set up a problem to be solved with the PORFLOW CFD solver and then visualize the solution after PORFLOW has computed the solution. The problem setup involves defining a mesh, setting the initial and boundary conditions, sources, reactions, properties, specifying matrix solver settings such as convergence criteria, iterations, and the actual linear solver, and specifying the solution output. A problem is set up in CFDStudio by creating a project. In this video, we will learn what is a CFDStudio project, how to create a new project in CFDStudio, what are the contents of a CFDStudio project, and how to open an existing project in CFDStudio. A CFDStudio project is a collection of files generated during the problem setup. Some of these files are not relevant for the solver and are used only by the CFDStudio pre and post processor. This includes the file containing the camera settings for displaying the mesh. There are two methods to create a new project in CFDStudio. First, we will see the method number 1. From your desktop, double-click on the PORFLOW icon to start CFDStudio PORFLOW. In this initial CFDStudio PORFLOW screen, select the option New Project and click on Go. To create a project, we'll first have to specify a project title. In the project title, use only alphabets A to Z, the digits 0 to 9, and the underscore character. Please make sure that there is no space in between the project title. For example, the title project underscore 123 is an acceptable title, but the title project space underscore 12 space 3 is not an acceptable title because there are spaces in between the project name. The project title is case insensitive on Windows OS, but it is case sensitive on Linux and Unix based operating systems because the Linux OS itself is sensitive to upper and lower case for file names and folder names. Next, you have to specify a location to store the contents of the project. A folder with the name of the project title will be created at the location where the project is to be stored. So, give a title for the project. Let us give the title project underscore 123. Now, you can select the location where the project files will be stored. To change the location, you can click on this button to open a window to browse to your preferred location. You can create a new folder using this button and give a title for the folder. Now you can double click and then select this folder. So at this location in your system, a folder called project underscore 123 will be created and all the files related to this project will be stored here. Next, the user has to specify a problem dimension. This is 2D or 3D. PORFLOW has no 1D option, but problems in 2 or 3D can be solved as a 1D problem by using appropriate boundary conditions. Then the user has to specify a coordinate system for solving the governing equations. The options involve Cartesian or cylindrical coordinates. Cartesian coordinates means x or y coordinate, the standard Cartesian directions in 2D, and x, y, z in 3D. The cylindrical coordinate systems mean the x or the axial direction and the r or the radial direction in 2D, and the x, the axial direction, r the radial direction, and theta the direction in the circumferential direction in 3D. For this video, we will select problem dimensionality as 2 and the coordinate system as Cartesian, and now click on Next. As the next step, the user has to define a grid or a mesh. This grid or mesh can be created in CFDStudio, or an existing mesh can be imported into CFDStudio. This existing mesh can be created or could have been created previously using CFDStudio or using another meshing software. Optionally, the user can set up the problem while creating the project. For this video, we will use a very simple option to create a grid for solving a 2D problem. You will see an option here called Simple Shapes. So select that. And the first option here says Box Orthogonal Grid. So click on this button. Do not change any of the values and just click Finish. We will see how to set up a PORFLOW problem in a later video. For this video, click on this Cancel button and click Yes. And click on this button which has a floppy button or floppy to save the problem setup so far. Now, if you go to the folder in your Windows Explorer, you will see a project folder has been created called project_123 at the location you specified. And you can see a few files in this folder. Now we will go through each of these files and see what they are used for. If your project title is project_001, like we said, the project will be stored in this folder called project_001. In this folder, you will always find a file with an extension APJ, a file with extension AGM, and a file with extension INP. Optionally, there may be some additional files. The file with extension APJ is called the PORFLOW project definition file. It contains information including the project location, date of creation, problem dimension and coordinate system, and the name of the camera settings file. This file is only used by CFDStudio. It is not required by the PORFLOW solver. Next, the AGM file contains the scaling and camera location information for displaying the mesh in CFDStudio. Again, this file is only used by CFDStudio and is not used by the PORFLOW solver. In your project folder, you can see the APJ file and the AGM file. Additionally, you can see a file with extension INP. The file with extension INP is called the PORFLOW input file. This file contains the problem definition for PORFLOW. This is a text file, and each line contains a command understood by PORFLOW. The commands are written in an English-like language, and they are created during the CFDStudio project creation. They can also be manually created in a text editor. We will learn more about PORFLOW input files in another video. Optionally, the PORFLOW project folder may contain a mesh or grid definition file. This is optional because certain types of meshes can be defined within the INP file itself. It is important to note, once a mesh has been created for a project, the mesh cannot be modified within the project. If you want to change some aspect of the mesh, you will have to start again with a new project. Additionally, the project folder may contain files defining projects and definitions for regions. We will learn more about regions in another video. A project which is open in CFDStudio can be closed by going to the File option in the menu bar and clicking on the Close Project option. Then say yes or click on yes here. Now we will see the second option for creating a project using CFDStudio. For this, go to the File option in the menu bar and select the New Project option. Again, you can give a project title and choose the problem dimensionality and the coordinate system. Now, this project will be stored in a new folder with the same name as the project title. Now you can click Next again and create a similar mesh to the previous problem. So select the Simple Shapes option and from here the box or orthogonal grid option and click on Finish. Now click Cancel here and click on this button to save the project setup so far. In your Windows Explorer, you can see there are separate folders created for each of the two projects we created so far. Now let us go into the folder for the second project we created. You can see the contents of this project are similar to the contents of the first project we created. You can see an APJ file, you can see an AGM file. Additionally, you can see the INP file and some optional other files have been created. The log file contains a log of the project creation steps. Again, go to the File option in the menu bar and click on Close Project. Next, we will learn how to open an existing project in CFDStudio. You can open an existing project to continue or modify a previous problem setup or visualize the solution for the previously set up problem. Again, there are two methods to open an existing project. We will see both those methods now. First, go to your desktop and double click on the PORFLOW button to start CFDStudio PORFLOW. From this initial screen in CFDStudio PORFLOW, select the Open an Existing Project option and click on Go. Now you will see this window open and you will automatically be taken to the last project that you had created and the file APJ or the APJ file will be shown here. So you can select this APJ file and click this option Load Grid and Regions Only to load this existing project in CFDStudio. So the problem setup is exactly where we stopped when we first created the project. And the user can continue setting up the project using the CFDStudio GUI. Now go to File and again click on the Close Project option. Now we will see the next method of creating opening an existing project in CFDStudio. Go to File and click on the Open Project button. If you want to open a different project, you can use the buttons here to browse to the location of the project. And from here, select the file project_123.apj. So the APJ file has to be selected and you can click on Load Grid and Regions Only to load this project in CFDStudio. Again, you can continue this problem setup from where you have left it, or if an existing solution is available, you can use CFDStudio to visualize the solution. When you use CFDStudio to create a new project or open an existing project, CFDStudio automatically takes you to the location of the last project you created. So CFDStudio remembers the last project that was created and the location where it was created. To open a different project, you can browse and go to the location of the project and choose the APJ file to open the project. Thank you.